Now I want to take you to inside of Israel. One talking point that you hear so much from people like the Lion of Israel. If you know anything about Israel, if you know anything about the Israeli apartheid, the Israeli regime, the ethno-state project of Israel, especially if you are a fan of the HasanAbi broadcast where I have covered this person actually does a phenomenal job of covering it and summarizing it in under 2 minutes or under 3 minutes. Let's take a look.
That a few people brought this up because Israel loves to tokenize its Palestinian citizens, and the goal is to portray Israel as this utopia where all of its citizens have complete freedom and equal rights. Let's talk about the Palestinians who hold Israeli citizenship. Did you know that Israel has more than 60 laws that discriminate against the Palestinian citizens of Israel based on their national origin and religion? In terms of access to land, 93% of land in Israel is controlled by the government and allocated by official Israeli agencies. And about 80% of that land is off use for Palestinian citizens for residential, agricultural, or commercial use. There's something called the Admissions Committees Law, which gives Israeli towns and villages the power to reject residential candidates who are inappropriate.
Understand something. This is legal segregation. The Israeli government has made it legally permissible to say, oh, you're an Arab. You are not Jewish. So you can't live in this fucking neighborhood. It's not even redlining. Because redlining, at least and it is still awful in policy, and the outcomes are similar. But at least redlining is done through private financial institutions directed by the federal government and done through this process where there's at least a financial component involved in it that isn't directly being no, you're black, you can't live in this fucking neighborhood. This is directly in the law. It straight up is directly in the law. You are Arab, which means you are not Jewish, which means you can't live in this fucking neighborhood. That's a real thing. That's why it's hilarious that motherfuckers say Israel is such a democratic country. It's the best, most moral, most democratic country on the planet.
Appropriate for the social and cultural fabric, aka Palestinians. In terms of property, over decades, Palestinian citizens of Israel have been pushed into their own overcrowded communities with very little room to expand to make way for Jewish citizens. Palestinian neighborhoods face a lot of restrictions, including an extreme difficulty in obtaining building permits. And as a result, they face the threat of house demolitions. An estimated 60
They're 97% of demolitions are Palestinians.
to 70,000 Palestinian homes are at risk of full demolition. Palestinian citizens are only 20% of the Israeli population, but as of 2015, their homes represented 97% of all
97% of all demolition orders issued by the Israeli courts were against Palestinian citizens of Israel. 97%! You think that shit's an accident? Fuck no. Many of them are Bedouin too.
all demolition orders issued by Israeli courts. And I'm not talking about the West Bank. These are Palestinian citizens of Israel. In terms of family reunification and immigration, Israeli law denies naturalization for Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza who are married to Israeli citizens. This forces thousands of Palestinian families.
Listen, this is something that straight up Israeli citizens are not even fucking aware of. They literally don't even know this shit where they're like, what? That's crazy. I don't believe you. Like the fucking one teenager that I talked to where I was literally like, bro, do you know what an apartheid is? And he's like, I do not know what an apartheid is. I literally told him about the fact that you can only have your citizenship status be lowered under the Israeli court structure if you are married to a Palestinian and not the other way around. It's not just that the Israeli land administration controls 93% of land. About half of that ILA's board is filled by a Jewish National Fund whose explicit mandate is to sell and develop land for Jews only. The report she brings up from HRW on land discrimination is a classic and a must read. Yeah. I mean, these are the rules of Israel for the most part. This is rules and regulations that are codified, institutionalized. Its discrimination is absolutely apparent to anyone who is not brain broken by Zionist propaganda.
Is to either live apart from their loved ones or move, while Jews from anywhere in the world can move to Israel and obtain automatic citizenship. These are just some of the racist Israeli laws that are designed to engineer demographics in order to maintain a Jewish majority while exacerbating the decline in Palestinian prosperity. The only way to successfully do this is by directly or indirectly discriminating against your own Palestinian population. As Benjamin Netanyahu says, Israel is not a state of all of its citizens. Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people and only it. So you can be a Jewish state or you can be a democracy. You can't be both.
So when you find that out, and this is, by the way, the premium class of Palestinians. Remember, Palestinian citizens of Israel are those who up until 1967 were living under similar situations to the West Bank Palestinians were. right? Military mandate, military rule, no housing rights, no liberties whatsoever. 1967, Israel actually says, all right, we're going to be nicer to the Palestinian citizens of Israel. We can maybe even use them for propaganda. Why? Because in 1967, it then expanded on its operations in the West Bank and over the Gaza Strip. So at that point, then the apartheid turns on the West Bank Palestinians and the Gaza Strip Palestinians. No, they are not house Palestinians. That's gross as fuck to say. Many of them are literally being brutalized by the Israeli government, as we openly showed you right here. The only difference is those Palestinian citizens of Israel, which are considered Arab by the Israeli government, as in they too are of Arab descent, just like almost all of the Mizrahi and Sephardi Jews. While those guys are of a similar ethnic origin, they are Christian or Muslim, and therefore they are not Jewish, and therefore they are called Arab under the Israeli demographic classification. So that's number one. That's very important. Those guys that Israelis who defend Israel oftentimes love talking about, like they'll be like, oh, well, what are you saying? There's an Arab fucking Supreme Court justice. Like, are you kidding me? Even though there are literally Bedouin and Arab IDF soldiers and shit that they love parading around like tokens, the rest of the Arab society in Israel, the Christian and Muslims, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, are obviously still brutalized by a two-tier criminal justice system in general. Not to the same degree as the West Bank Palestinians, is certainly not to the same degree as the Gazan Palestinians, but there is still an apartheid in effect inside of Israel as well, inside of Israel proper, inside of the 6-7 boundaries. I mean, not even the 6-7 boundaries, like just straight up inside the green line. You will not hear that shit, though, anywhere. You will never hear that shit from our mainstream media that literally turns around and says Israel is the most moral nation. Israel is the best nation. Israel is the best goddamn democracy on the planet. Only democracy in the Middle East? Fuck it. Fuck the Middle East. The only democracy on the planet. And as we already mentioned, obviously, Israel's Knesset passed a law barring Palestinian spouses. Legislators approved law denying naturalization of Palestinians from the West Bank or Gaza who are married to Israeli citizens. Well, if that were true, why does he have to keep saying it? The reason why I have to keep repeating the facts about Israel over and over again is because most mainstream outlets that are supposed to disseminate correct information, that are supposed to educate you on the process, are lying to you. That is precisely the reason why I have to consistently repeat myself, because many people understandably see all of that shit and take it for granted. After all, why shouldn't they take it for granted?